Hey everyone, this is Steve. I just want to say we are having so much fun making this show. It is giving us life, and we hope it's doing the same for you. If we've encouraged you in any way, would you take a second and encourage us? Send us an email at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com, message us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share us with a ministry friend, write a nice review on iTunes. By the way, thanks to Mike from Normal, Illinois for your kind words recently. Anyway, this is a labor of love, and we want to help as many youth workers as we can, so would you please help us get the word out about this show? On today's episode, we chat about the reluctance of today's generation to do anything that might make them feel hypocritical, our shame and guilt keeping kids from giving life with Jesus a chance. We also talk about how to push through those times when our own doubts and struggles leave us feeling unworthy for the role we're in. How do we pastor when we're not feeling it? All this, plus Brock is teaching the book of Revelation, and we all decided that means we should eat all the donuts we can. This is Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast, so roll down your windows and let's get started. Welcome back to the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast Youth Ministry with the windows down. Hey everyone, my name is Steve Anderson, and I'm joined by my co-host Shannon Dunn. Hi Shannon.
Hello Steve.
And Brock Morgan. What's up, Brock?
Hey guys, it's so good to see you.
We've been recording for the last few minutes here and are talking, and Brock has been giggling the entire time. So yeah. I don't know, Brock. You okay, man?
I'm a little delusional today.
It's Monday morning as we record this, and I know we all had long days yesterday. I was here for like 13 hours, and so it's just kind of a little loopy today.
Dude, I'm so fried. I preached in the main services yesterday. We're in the book of Revelations. So,
oh my gosh.
Oh man, I'm wiped out. So I'm a little giddy.
That is a tough book to preach. I admire you guys for taking it on. That's a challenge.
Well, you know.
Did you figure it out?
Yes, we know exactly about everything. Nice. We know who the Antichrist is.
You got the charts.
We know what's going to happen on this day, October 10th.
We're recording this in advance, already knowing what's going to happen.
See?
That is amazing. That's
amazing.
Yes.
That just sits with me totally theologically. Like totally tracking.
Yes.
Well, I had a really important job at church yesterday, almost as big as preaching on Revelation. I had to wake up really early, like 6 a.m. so that I could pick up donuts. So just really was stretched to the limit yesterday.
Wow.
So,
what's the go-to donut in Malibu, California?
Oh, we don't have donuts in Malibu. That's why donuts are a problem for me every week. Finding someone to go through the canyon. We were getting Dunkin for a while because someone lived close, but then people complained because Dunkin's gross. Ooh, hot topic. Dunkin's gross.
Oh, that is controversial. New England is not happy with you, Shannon,
I know,
right now.
I'm sorry. I just made some people really mad.
It's all right.
So I've been testing out different places to make people happy about their donuts. So found a little chain, or not a chain, a little mom and pop shop called Blinky's, and we're pretty happy with it.
Blinky's.
Yep.
Now, are you like full donuts, or are you doing like donut holes, right? So what's the...
No, we do full donuts.
Oh, nice.
Is it Krispy Kreme? You guys have Krispy Kreme out there?
We do have Krispy Kreme. It's just, again, far. It's like 30-minute drive.
Yeah. We have a Krispy Kreme drive-through, so I picked those up yesterday.
Dude, when that hot sign is on, it's like crack cocaine, man. I have to, doesn't matter. I'm pulling in there if the hot sign is on.
My diet yesterday was I had a Krispy Kreme donut for breakfast. I had pizza for lunch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and then pasta for dinner. Like, it was a high carb.
Oh.
It was, it was probably not the healthiest day of
feeling a little bloated today, I'm guessing.
it's hard to eat well when you're a youth pastor.
It
you're
is
all day, and it's tough.
You know what happens to me? Oh, Shannon, please.
I was just saying, you have to eat pizza. Like at our group, we like eat pizza every Wednesday night. So I eat pizza every Wednesday night. It's like, what else are you gonna do?
So what I do, I feel discipline at youth group, and I don't eat the pizza. But here's the problem: by the time youth group is over, on my way home, I'm starving, and I tend to go to like In-N-Out or like it. So it's like, what am I doing? This is not working. It's not working.
No, I always have a fight with myself on the way home. We have this fast food chain, gas station restaurant called Sheetz. You guys ever heard of Sheetz?
Yes.
It's the go-to, and it's right by my house. It's like a Wawa. It's an upgrade of 7-Eleven, and they have a big menu. And I'm like, do I stop at Sheetz? Do I get something to eat? It's 10 o'clock. I could go to bed. I could wake up hungry and eat something healthy in the morning, or I could stop now. And I just, I usually lose the battle, to be honest.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is hard.
This is the life of a youth worker, man. So difficult. It is so difficult.
Brock, in your preaching yesterday, were you able to discern from the book of Revelation how long we're going to be here? Because, if the world's going to end in a couple years, I'm just going to eat whatever the heck I want.
Yes.
And not care and feel no guilt.
Yeah. Yes. Steve, this is what I'm deciphering from Revelation. Eat what you want. Eat whatever you want. It's totally fine. You're going to get a new glorified body.
Okay. Everything is clean. Eat whatever you want.
All things will be made right.
Sounds good.
I'd like to listen to your sermon now.
All right, you guys ready to go into our first segment for the day?
Oh my gosh, please.
Let's do it.
Speaking of food we shouldn't eat and how bad we feel after we eat it, our topic for our opening segment today is shame and guilt. So Brock brought this idea to us today, this idea that students today seem to have, in some sense, a little bit of an inflated or hypersensitivity to shame and guilt and fear of being hypocritical, which causes them to kind of shy away maybe from fully committing to their faith. So you want to tell us a little bit of the story, the background of that, Brock?
Yeah, and I see this, and I've seen this becoming a growing trend, and maybe you guys can speak into this as well, but it's what I might call the lie of guilt. When you mess up, let's just say you do something, you're talking bad about a friend, or you wrong a friend in some way, you tend to withdraw. Like, they found out I did something wrong. Kids will withdraw from that relationship. And we tend to do that with God when we have messed up, when we've crossed a line that we swore we'd never cross. Guilt causes us to, it's also maybe like the lie of unworthiness. We are unworthy. We are guilty. But the lie is that I don't deserve, I shouldn't pursue, I shouldn't make things right. I don't deserve that. And so what I've seen kids do is like, we'll go on a retreat and night one, they're not engaging in worship because they feel too guilty. Like, I don't deserve to worship God right now. I don't deserve to experience God right now. I'm too messy. Or for me, recently, a couple of kids told me, I know I signed up to get baptized, but I don't think I'm ready right now. Oh, really? How come? Well, I've done some things recently. And so it's that lie of guilt that causes them to pull back from that relationship. And it's a sneaky little lie, man. And I here's my question for you guys, and you guys can speak into this any way you want. I just feel like this generation is a little more tenderhearted. They're a little bit more sensitive to hypocrisy. I have been a youth pastor a long time, so I've worked with kids who are fine with hypocrisy. And I've just noticed there's an ethic right now
Yeah.
that's good, but also robbing from them. What do you guys think?
Being authentic and not being a hypocrite seems to be a high cultural value right now, especially with all the reaction to all the crap that's happened in the church over the last few years, and people walking away from the church because of what they've seen in people in the church. And that's always been the case, but it does seem like it's ramped up, right? So maybe in response to that, and they're trying to form a faith that's authentic and genuine to the core, they're very reluctant, if there's anything that's between them and God, to take that step. I think you're onto something, Brock. Culturally, I'm not sure the initial reaction is even bad. I think the desire to not be a hypocrite is probably good, right? That's something that we should pursue as Christians. It's just a question of how do we walk ourselves and others back from the shame and the guilt to experience the grace of God while we're still working that out.
Yeah, and I think there is really something that you've hit on here, Steve, about the cultural like authenticity and anti-hypocrisy, and like we've watched how Christians have handled a pastor sinning, right? And I'm not saying whether we've handled it well or not, but I think we've probably done both, right? We've sometimes handled it well, sometimes not handled it well, and they're probably afraid of like cancel culture, right? Even like they're seeing these extreme reactions to hypocrisy. Maybe some of those are totally appropriate reactions, but whatever it is, I think we've blasted it in the news, right? So it's not that this is necessarily new. It's just that they're seeing it and it's in the forefront of news. And I think it goes beyond Christian leaders and it goes to political leaders as well. And so, yeah, I think that they're like, well, that's not Christianity. People are so quick to point a finger and be like, well, that's not Christianity. And so then they're looking at their own life and asking themselves, am I a Christian too? Right? Maybe, I don't know. That's what
I also think there is a sense of stuckness. So like we know from research that kids are becoming addicted to different things earlier. Let's just say pornography, for an example. We know that kids are coming into middle school, a decent percentage of kids already in the midst of that world. And now they're in high school. There's now even more so. And there's this idea of, well, I know I'm not going to stop doing this. Or if it's a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend and we're crossing the line physically, let's just say, well, we know we're not going to stop doing this. And so I'm not going to get baptized, or I'm not going to engage in my spiritual walk because I know I'm just going to keep messing up. See, I just go, oh man, because there's a much better way to live, right? But they feel stuck. They don't want to be stuck. It's kind of like, I want to be stuck, but I don't want to be stuck.
Yeah. I was kind of processing my own spiritual walk as you were talking about that, like I didn't avoid my relationship with Christ because I was, in sin in high school or whatnot. And so it's interesting. I was thinking through that, but yeah, it is interesting to look at it generationally to see like if they're handling it differently. But is it also just, do you think it's their understanding of grace is different? Like, right, they have a different lens they're looking at the whole world through than I did in high school. They're being exposed to so much more earlier or whatnot. So is there a different lens that they're like viewing grace through,
Oh, for sure. And I do think that there's the cheap grace aspect, which is, oh, dude, I remember even thinking this as a kid. When I'm older, then I'll get right with God, right? That's the cheap grace. That's that's what Paul talks about. Should we just keep on sinning so that grace can get bigger, right? And cover more. It's that cheap grace, like, I'll just take care of it someday. There's that aspect. And then there's the other aspect of maybe it's I don't deserve his grace right now. I don't and so I have to work my way to be acceptable, right? And that's also a dangerous way to live relationally with the Lord.
I see major cultural streams of different facets of grace. There's the whole legalistic stream, that a lot of church cultures foster. Probably less so today than maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but still out there for sure. And it's all about behavior modification, appearing to do the right thing. And whether that's intentionally taught or not, it's obviously kind of spoken or unspoken. And then there's, like you said, Brock, the strain where, well, we can just do whatever we want because the culture is going that way and we'll be fine and God will forgive me. So maybe the students who are having those questions for you in terms of baptism are exactly the ones who are going to figure this out in a way that brings them to a deeper, real, rich, permanent relationship with Christ. And that's a good sign. So those are the students that we can really walk alongside and help them understand the both and that, yes, you don't want to be engaged in these behaviors because you're stuck. They're not good for you. On the other side, you can't stop being engaged with God. He still wants you in relationship with him, even though you have those behaviors. Let's walk through this together somehow. Keep short accounts and let's build your faith over time, because it takes a long time and it's never perfect. That's not easy, but
no. Well, this is what it means to pastor in this generation,
right?
Children are being exposed to things earlier, struggling with things earlier.
And in church world, I think our message would be, well, don't ever look at pornography, or don't ever do this drug, or don't ever do those things. And the reality is most kids, if they haven't already, are going to. And so we don't want to set them up to fail before they start. So somehow we have to communicate the message that you don't want to do those things, but you are never, never disqualified from being in a relationship with God.
We talk youth ministry. We talk currently about like belonging before you believe.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Brock, if some of these students, do they feel like they don't belong to the group? Does that play anything into any of this? And I think that goes into what Steve said too, is that our messaging from the front can't be like, that we cut off people who don't behave a certain way. You don't belong, right? Like we have to be careful about making sure that anyone with any story belongs.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I don't think in this case it's an issue of belonging, but I do think as youth workers, we have to be very careful that we don't put the ideal in front of kids that are ridiculous, and so I think that's really important. Like even who we give the stage to, like we do regular kid testimonies, and I don't just pick happy bow at the end testimonies.
Yeah.
We have kids sharing in the midst of their struggles. We have kids sharing their doubts and their questions. We have kids sharing their insecurities, maybe not specifically, but man, I walk with these insecurities, and then we can get somewhere. So for us, for a value that I think has helped the belonging is I'm wanting the voices to be a broad spectrum of people who are not afraid to share their flaws. And then I also lead with my brokenness, not with my victories. And I think that's another thing that can contribute to belonging before believing is I struggle too. I need Jesus too. We all are desperate for God's goodness. And fortunately, he is so good. And so we can stay at it together. But I think there is that common kind of view of, man, I'm not who I want to be, so I'm just going to check out. And I just think that is such a lie that as youth workers, we have to consistently be bringing to kids, because that lie is going to keep coming to them. And it could be the social media perfect life lie that is getting brought into their spiritual world. Anyway,
I wonder too. Oh, sorry. I wonder too about emphasizing I think it's important to balance the personal relationship with God and like our communal relationship with believers as well. But I wonder too if these kids really need to figure out, that personal relationship with God, and how to have this relationship, because like you said, it's like a relationship that pulls away, but like, no, look, it's still, you can still go after him. So
I just want to share what we did last night at our youth ministry, because I think it's relevant in a slightly different angle. But one of the things that can keep kids from coming back is the sense that, well, other people here aren't living up to my ideal of what Christians are. And so, they're hypocrites. I don't want to be part of that because I'm fighting with that person or whatever. And so last night, our message was, we are family even when family's messy. And that's just the honest truth. So you have to stay in the family and work through it, not just abandon the family because someone is screwing up, because we're all screwing up. And that seemed to resonate. It's early in the year, so we'll see if it sticks. But the expectation that the group's going to be perfect and everybody's going to be well behaved and treat everybody perfectly all the time and get along is not realistic for church, for youth ministry, for our own families. So grace upon grace upon grace upon grace is the message over and over and over again.
Did you watch Fast and the Furious after that to tie it in? Guys, do you not get that reference?
I missed the reference. Shannon, I've never watched a Fast and Furious reference in my life.
Forget it.
Sorry.
Forget it.
Don't you hate when I'll do that with like Seinfeld references, because no one like, I'll throw out a Kramer, I'll throw out a George, and everyone looks at me like, what?
No.
Come on, people.
I'm so sorry, Shannon.
Fast and the Furious, like the tagline for the newest one is like, family is everything. The whole thing is like, family is everything.
Gotcha.
Anyways.
Dude, you should have used that last night. You blew it.
It just came out like this week, guys. Come on.
Okay. All right. Well, it's time to transition into our second segment. It's our segment we do every episode, Get to Know Your Sherpa. And this week, Shannon's going to bring us a question that we get to answer.
Yes.
Hey, I have no idea what you're going to ask us, so we can get to know each other a little bit better. So, yeah, Shannon, what you got for us today?
All right. So my question for you is throwing you back to think about when you were in high school. And if you could go back and meet with your high school self face to face, what advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself?
It's good.
Oh, that is so good. Oh, my gosh. Steve, what would you tell little Steve?
High school Steve. Well, first I would tell high school Steve that you really don't need to worry about your hair, because someday it is not going to matter. It is not going to matter at all. So don't try to impress anybody with your hair, because it's, like flowers of the field, and the grass will wither and fade. But, my high school self I'm an Enneagram 4, so I'm always thinking about my purpose in life and where I'm going to find meaning and value. And I didn't know Enneagrams when I was in high school, but I was always just thinking, am I going to matter in this world? I would tell myself just to go easy on myself, I think. And that I will eventually figure out what my place is, what my gifts are, and where I'm going to make the most difference. that, and stop worrying about the girls. You're not going to marry those girls, so it doesn't matter. Your wife is going to be so much prettier than those girls, and she's going to age so much better than those girls, because I've seen some of them on Facebook, and I just going to say,
Steve.
Okay.
I better cut that out.
Dude, I literally, my wife the other day was looking at some of her high school friends on their high school Facebook group, and she was like, man, I look so much better than my friends do.
Yeah.
I was like,
Wow.
well, that's what, there you go, girl. Come on.
All right, Brock. High school Brock. High school
All right.
Brock is struggling. What are you going to tell him? Voice from the future.
Dude, so my high school self, so I'm going to get a little more real. Maybe not more real, a little more, because yours is real. Letting yourself off the hook a little bit. I think I needed to go the other way.
Okay. A little harder on yourself.
A little harder on myself. So
Some
like
shame and guilt coming here.
Yeah, I needed some shame and guilt. No, I had two issues when I was in high school. One was around identity. So I had a learning disability. And so academics were really difficult. It ended up in the long run being a gift, because I kind of gained a strong work ethic. But but I really thought I was stupid, that there was something wrong with me, and I would love to come alongside Brock and that's where the grace would be. That's not my identity. The other thing the positive part of my identity, I'm an athlete. I'm stupid, but I'm great at sports. So I would talk about those two lies. And then here's the real thing, as I would be like, bro, your sin nature is so much more powerful than you know. Because I was a little naive in that I thought, oh, I'll never do such and such. I would never do that. I was one of those youth group kids. I can't believe they're doing that. I would never do that. And then years later, you want to do that. And so I would talk to myself about, bro, you are no better than anyone else, and your sin nature is powerful. And so I would talk around those two things, identity and you're not better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Shannon, what was high school Shannon wrestling with that you can steer her better?
Yeah. Well, I think more about like how what I need to hear in high school affected post high school a little bit, but there's one's like sort of silly, but I quit running basically my senior year, and like running was life for me. Like I was athletic, but my parents got a divorce near the end of my high school, and I like kind of shut off things that I loved, like running. And I look back on that as like a regret, because now when I try to go running, it hurts so bad. And I'm like, so it's like a little silly, because I'm like, why did you ever let yourself get out of shape? That was a terrible idea. Right. Like, so that's like one, like, hey, just keep going. Like, don't give up on something that you are passionate about and you love. And that's sort of the message I need to hear about a lot of things. I think that I was afraid. I didn't have a lot of confidence. And so I think I hesitated on a lot of things. So I think I would tell myself to like dream a little bigger and take some bigger steps. And not because I wish I didn't end up in youth ministry. Like that sounds like, go pursue something different. Not that. It's just that I like hesitated, and it took me longer than it needed to like take the steps and the actions into things that I could have and should have been doing earlier. So I think that goes along with like where I decided to go to college, and like just things I really hesitated and doubted myself in. So yeah,
I'd also tell
a little bit.
I'd also tell myself who wins the Super Bowl each year, so that I can play some bets.
There you go.
Shannon, I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like maybe young Shannon needed to hear how amazing she is. Like you don't have to think small.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tying that up, maybe there's kids in our youth ministry right now that need to hear the same messages that we just wanted to share with ourselves.
Yeah.
Maybe there's little Brocks, Shannons, and Steves out there who are wrestling with those exact same things, and we can say to them, listen, I got the future. I got the future for you. That'd be good.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our final segment for today's show. We're calling this Not Feeling It. What happens? What do you do in ministry when you're in a place where you are having either questions about your faith or doubts about your purpose in ministry, or things that are making it really hard, a season that's really hard to do the job? I mean, we've probably all been in a place where we've had to stand up and speak on a given night, and we knew we shouldn't be up there, but you have to do it. And you feel like a hypocrite, like we talked about in the first segment. So the idea of how do you keep yourself, how do you put yourself in a place where you can wrestle with those questions as we do the thing that we love to do. So just to open it up to that.
Here's like, before I answer or speak of how I think you deal with it, am I the only one that like spirals when I hit into the like vulnerable here, right? Like, where I'll like be like, oh gosh, I have this doubt. Oh gosh, I'm in a job where I shouldn't have this doubt. Oh no, if I don't have this job, I don't make money. Oh gosh, can I do anything else outside of ministry? Like, I'm going to be homeless. I mean, like, does anyone else spiral? Or is it just
totally.
me?
But see, I then fantasize about doing other things. So like, I'll see the UPS driver with his brown shorts, and I'll be like, I could do that. Listen to ESPN radio all day and deliver packages. Come on, I can do that. I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shannon, being in my late 50s now, I've had this question for several years in my own head and heart. Like, if I were to leave this, what else could I do? And can I keep doing this long enough to, be financially secure?
Right.
Not, regardless of the questions that I might have in my heart and spirit, there's just the questions of how long can I do this? So yeah, I totally go there frequently and don't have solutions to that.
Yeah.
So I'm making a podcast instead.
I went to a friend of mine. Well, I went to a friend of mine. I'll tell you what he told me, because I told him, dude, I am fried. I'm burned out. I feel like quitting, but I don't think I could do anything else. Like, this is all I've ever done. I've done it too long. I've been in it too long. I can't learn any new skills. This is it. And he was like, no, wrong. He's like, Brock, you have led major events. You regularly communicate. You market things. And he just started going through all the skills that I've learned and all the things I've done. And by the end, I was like, oh my gosh. It's almost like, Shannon, you had to tell your teenage self, no, actually, you can do amazing things. Maybe that's something we have to keep telling ourselves. We aren't boxed in. But I don't think that's ultimately our question. Our question is, how do I continue to minister when I myself am struggling maybe with my faith, or I'm having theological questions that are rattling me, or I'm not sensing God's presence? What do you guys do in that situation?
Right. Well, I think you kind of hit on what I was going to say, Brock, is that for me, it's been really important to have safe people outside of my own ministry context that I can go to and talk to and share with. It has to be outside of your own church. It doesn't always feel safe, I think, within your own church. Maybe you might have someone within your own church is safe, but I think generally a lot of times it's like outside of our own ministry context, outside of our own church, that you can go and share super vulnerably with, and who you know is going to uplift and encourage too, not someone that's going to spiral with me. And who are those people in my life that will support me? And that has been really important.
Oh yeah,
dude, it's so huge.
I was thinking exactly the same thing. I have to have people that I can talk to that because as a staff person or as a pastor, people have this view of pastor, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
level of certainty that people expect, I think, for us to have, that's not realistic, or it's certainly not always authentic. And
Yeah.
there's some things that we're so certain about, but there's many things we're uncertain about. And the pressure to deliver certainty, even as a youth pastor to kids, sometimes is soul crushing. So
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
yeah, I've had discussions with friends, about certain theological topics and so forth, that I have to talk it out. And I have to be okay with maybe not having all the answers to those things, so that I can step back into ministry and focus on the things I am certain about, and love people and love students and love Jesus. So yeah, I think safety outside the church, someone to talk to, is really, really important.
One night I was getting ready to speak at youth group. It's specifically on the cross. And at that time, I was reading some books that were rattling my faith a little bit. And I remember having some, it was more like theological struggles. I wasn't like doubting God. Like I knew God was real, but it was more like, questions that I thought I'd never have. Maybe it goes back to teenage Brock. Like, dude, you're going to struggle with things too.
Yeah.
And I remember getting up front and just deciding to be faithful to what I had known, historically at least, what was true.
Mm.
And at the
Yeah.
time, I was reading an Anne Lamott book, and she is one of my favorite. I just love her. She's just so, she stretches me in probably good ways. But she is, one of her most famous quotes is, the opposite of faith is not doubt.
Mm.
The opposite of faith is certainty.
Mm.
And I remember feeling that was like a warm blanket being placed over me. Like, oh, wait a second. I can stand in the tension here. And I don't, now I've seen youth pastors who are struggling and wrestling with overwhelming doubts, and they evangelize their kids into doubt. And I think that is a huge violation of where they are developmentally.
Yeah.
The frontal part of the brain is not fully developed, and so they see more black and white. And when we bring the beautiful gray too early, too soon, it can be damaging as a youth worker. So we have to be careful, but that doesn't mean that we have to have all the answers or not struggle ourselves. And so there's an appropriate amount of sharing that I struggle here too. Here's what's helped me though. And but for me, it was, I just needed in that moment, because I did work through it, I needed in that moment to be faithful to what I had known, even though I was wrestling with some things that were making me a little less sure.
I like that a lot, Brock. Coming back to the simple truths, even while you're wrestling with some of the deeper, grayer truths, and focusing on that, especially as you teach students, I think is really, really good. Yeah, that's that's really helpful. I think the thing that we gain with age is perspective, and perspective makes those giant doubts shrink, because you step back from them and you realize that's not the thing that's going to break my faith. Sky Detani talks a lot about unbundling some of the things that we've been taught as Christians, because some of the things we've been taught and that we have even taught ourselves to others are things that aren't necessarily that important to the faith, and we've added them on. So if you can unbundle those things and shed them, but maintain the heart and essence of Jesus, the Son of God and salvation, those other things you can work out. So perspective,
Dude,
time. Yeah.
I also think, let me just reiterate what you just said. I think we have to teach our outgoing high school students, incoming college students, how to unbundle.
I agree.
Because
they're developmentally ready for it.
Like the unbundling is so key, because you'll have kids go, man, I don't know if I believe this one thing anymore. So then it must all be untrue.
Right.
And no, dude. So yeah, unbundling, that is an important thing that we do with our seniors.
Yeah.
I shared with you guys a few weeks ago, my highlight of the week was when I had some guys that were just a year out of high school come over for dinner. And that's exactly what we did that night, is we talked through some of these things, not in a way that was like, hey, let's address these issues. They just came up and we talked through them. And I think I was able to reveal my questions about those things in a way that let them know that they can have the same questions. And it doesn't discount all the things that they've grown up knowing and been taught.
Totally. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say too, on a practical level, like if someone is listening and struggling right now too, number one, if you want to talk, email us. One of us will love to talk to you. But number two, I think just there's a practical level of like, probably some of these questions are coming from a place of burnout. And so you also, I think, need to like stop like for a minute, like take a step back, give yourself a little bit of a break, not from your relationship with God, but if you're in a place of questioning God, you're also maybe burnt out in your ministry. So like take a step back from your ministry for a second, be honest with where you are with yourself, and give yourself a little breather and a moment, to connect again. So
good. That's good.
And you're not a hypocrite in my mind for having to complete your duty that day that you are paid and hired to do, even though you don't feel like it.
Absolutely.
That's okay. It's okay if you taught a message and you weren't feeling it that day. It's okay. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a good word, guys.
Wow.
So
That's
good.
Deep. All right. Well, as we wrap up today, it's time for revealing the positives of ministry, right? That's a little heavy. So what kept you going this week?
All right, I'll go first.
Yes, please go first, Shannon.
Look, right, when we talked about this question, we said sometimes it would be ministry related and sometimes it would be like tacos, right? It's like you never know what it was that kept us going this week. But for me this week, it was a little 2-night trip to Great Wolf Lodge with my family. That's like an indoor water park hotel. But it was just my family and my kids this week that kept me going. It was like really, really refreshing and just a little bit of space that I needed, a little moment. In the middle of the week, we took our kids out of school. Terrible parents. We're awful. It was really good.
Oh, that's so good to take your kids out of school. I think every parent should do that every year. Oh man, that's
only once a year. We do it more than that.
Okay, yes, as much as you possibly can.
Well, especially if you're working on weekends,
right? That's the problem.
Is what we do. You have, exactly. I love that.
Dude, so good. Steve, what about you? I'm struggling right now because I'm so fried. I need you to go first.
Well, we talked a few weeks ago about our perfect night of youth ministry. What a great night of youth ministry would be. And last night was, by the time this show comes out, it'll feel old, but it was our first full night of high school for the year, and put a lot of time, and I was stressed out about it, and it just went so well. We had new students show up. The worship was great. The kids were singing with their hearts. There was passion and joy in the room. We just mentioned our upcoming fall retreat, and the room exploded into applause. They listened to my message. They laughed at my jokes. Our leaders were on point in their family groups. We had new leaders there, and they were all smiling afterwards and had a great first night. So it just came together. I know every night won't be like that, but last night was, and it felt really good.
That's awesome.
That's so good, Steve. I love those nights. So fun. All right, I got it as you were talking. So I am tired. It's been a full week, but let me just talk to you about my daughter for a second, because I think she's the she really encouraged me this week. So my daughter is a film person, so she's taking a directing class, movie directing class right now. She's working on a documentary, and she does a lot of side projects. She's so good and she's so creative, but she is like serving in our youth ministry. She's our best leader, constantly getting with students outside of youth group, helping me lead things. I preached yesterday, and she came up to me first. "Oh, Dad, that was so good." And I was feeling a little insecure. I was feeling like, oh, I was kind of pushing buttons in this sermon. I'm feeling a little vulnerable. "Dad, that was so good. I loved it." And then she pointed out a couple of things that really challenged her that she loved. And I just was like, oh, I just gotta, like, my kid, dude, my kid, she is so great. Anyway, that's what's kept me going.
And she likes you.
She likes me.
That's big.
Great. Awesome.
It's like my whole goal for my kids when they're adults.
Right?
I mean, love Jesus and like me, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So true. Oh, this has been fun, guys. Great conversation today. Thanks for listening to us. If you want to follow, share, like, or whatever else to make sure you get every episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast, what do you need to do?
Smash that subscribe button.
That's right. And if you want to talk, if you've got issues, you want to work out with us, feel free to email us at youthministrysherpas@gmail.com. We would love to interact with you and give you a phone call or whatever, and just do what we can to offer some wisdom and help for you in this amazing endeavor we call youth ministry. We want you to keep going. So we will be back soon with another episode of the Youth Ministry Sherpas Coast to Coast. Until then, it is great being with you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.